It's very important for you to understand that being a vet does not mean that you get to play with puppies and kittens all the time. So, a lot of misconceptions that a lot of people have is that it's a happy feel because we're dealing with animals and we're all cherry eyed. You're dealing with the negative and the positive at the same time.
Today's guest is someone I've come to know both professionally and personally. And every time we talk, I walk away inspired. Dr. Nicole Dumas was born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago, where her love for animals grew wild alongside the rich biodiversity of the islands. That passion carried her across borders, from wildlife conservation in the Caribbean to advanced training here in New York City, and eventually to founding her very own veterinary hospital. Nicole is not just a healer, she's a builder, an entrepreneur, and a powerful example of what it means to lead with purpose and heart. Today, we talk about the journey and the impact of turning a childhood dream into a community changing mission. Let's get into it. All right, folks, I'm excited to have Nicole, I call her Nicole, here with me today to talk about entrepreneurship, medicine, uh, the Caribbean, you name it. Nicole is amazing, and so Nicole, one of the reasons why I'm excited to have you on the show, you've heard me say this a couple of times. One, I think in all the people I know, in all the 3,000 friends on Facebook, of which only six I know, all right, you're the only vet I know, and probably one of the few people that I've ever met that actually owns their own veterinary hospital. We bonded on the fact that we both are Caribbean and we play carnival, we play mas and all that jazz, right? And
Yes.
then I got to visit your hospital and it's like, she really loves animals. And I said, this will be a great show because I don't know how many people actually know the journey to becoming a veterinary doctor, right? Or an animal doctor, as you call it, as opposed to a human doctor.
People
So,
doctor.
people doctor, right? Yeah. And again, when I read your profile for the very first time, maybe 3 years ago, 2 years ago, I was like, she's worked with what? And you're an exotic animal doctor as well, or something like that?
Yes, so I also treat exotic pets.
Good Lord. So let's get into this, man. Tell us what sparked this love for animals, for pets, or animals in general.
Ever since I was very young, I kind of really loved just being around animals, and I always was very empathetic to what they were going through. And as I grew up, I just felt the need to be their voice and their advocate. And I knew that I could do that by being a vet and just helping them through like diseases and sicknesses that they potentially have. But I grew up not with actual pets. I just grew up with like regular stuff like dogs, a cat. At one point, we had a bird, but my mom's deathly afraid of birds also. Like, deathly. Like, she can't even, like, if they look at her, she's like crying. She can't even like clean a whole chicken. She's deathly afraid of birds.
What do you mean clean a whole? You mean a clean a whole living chicken or a chicken as
A
prepared
chicken,
for food?
like a whole bird that's like packaged in the packaging. She can't touch it. She has to do
Oh
parts.
wow.
Yeah, yeah, she's like really afraid.
So so like at what age then what made you realize this is what I want to do in life? I want to take care. Like I know the love started from young, even though you didn't have pets, you just felt empathetic. But what age did you say, hey, I want to do this?
I would say probably around the age of like 4 or 5, to be honest. Yeah. I always had dogs, and I just always kind of gravitated towards like how they like they're just general like feeling their aura, and it made me feel good because they love you unconditionally, and so I want to give that love back unconditionally, and the way that I can do that is by helping them, because again, you become their voice when no one else knows what's going on. You kind of have like a little cue that goes, something's going on. He's not
Yeah,
walking the
yeah.
same way. He's laying down. He's not really doing why. And then it's that inquisitive nature. And I always loved science, and I always loved kind of like medicine, like the medicine feel behind things. The
So,
why
so
has
I'm
always
gonna
been a big
pause you
thing.
here, man, because I'm finding it hard that at the age of 4 we loved science and medicine.
Yes. I spoke at an early age too. So
Okay.
I was an avid reader at a young age
Ah,
also. Yeah. So
okay.
definitely all of that kind of played a part into kind of what my parents actually allowed me to do and had access to also was a big thing,
Hmm.
because my parents never really kind of slowed me down or stopped me from different reading materials and stuff like that. I had basically access to everything, and my parents were actually really big into sci-fi, so the science portion of it came in like super early.
Oh, wow. Okay. So now you're in Trinidad and Tobago,
Yes.
right? And I know in New York, in the U.S., pets are sacred. Is
Yes.
it the same mindset over there in the Caribbean? Because I'm of Caribbean nature, and I can almost promise you it's not the same.
um yes and no. It
Okay.
depends. It does depend on which part of the island you're from.
Hmm.
But also, in general, there's been kind of like recently and within the last like recently like within the last 5 years, people are now accepting like pets as more family members than an object that they own or property.
Hmm.
But the Caribbean's still kind of far behind, so that's generally how people think about animals. Like this thing is working for me. If I have a dog, it's to protect my house. It's not a part of my family. Um,
Okay.
and so yeah, so in Trinidad for sure. Our pets were working animals, but loved as a part of our family from a young
Gotcha.
age. Yeah.
So at 4, you decide that I want to be a veterinarian, and I know you played sports. So what was the education track like? How did you start? When did you start molding your choices to saying, hey, I'm going to this school or I'm gonna study this pathway? What does that look like?
So I started pretty much when I was in what our primary school, which is until we're 10. I don't know what that equates to in grades. And then from 10 on, we go into high school for 7 years, 5 to 7 years, depending. So it started when I was in my primary school years, so probably around the age of 7 or 8.
What
I
classes were
s-
you taking at
so
what?
so we generally have the same classes, but you start developing idea for what classes you want to go into in high school, like what your air quotes
Mm,
major would be. Yeah, so in primary school, you have access to all the different classes, and you figure out what you like so that you can figure out what school you want to go to, because they have different schools, and this is all like government schools as well as private, but the government schools in Trinidad in high school are like very good. So you're figuring out which school you want to go to so that you can set yourself up for which college you want to go to, and then inevitably what tertiary education that you decide that you want to go into.
all right. So fast forward, you're now, I'm assuming, in your medical school in Trinidad,
Hmm.
correct? And you eventually graduate, I think, top 1% of your class.
I did, but you skipped a bunch of steps.
Talk to me then. Because this is what I'm saying. This is what we're trying to figure out here.
So in high school, I majored in science, so I did a sciencey kind of follow through with my education. So I did
Hmm.
like bio and chemistry. And before I got into college in the United States, I actually had an associate's degree in biology and chemistry. And a minor in art because I love art.
I never knew that. I need to see this.
Yes, I am an artist.
Okay,
um,
learn something new.
and then what I did was when I went into college, we used all of that kind of really intense background information for me to basically draft up my letter into what I hoped would be my acceptance into college. But in Trinidad, you do not need to go into college to go into the medical field. You can go become a doctor or a veterinarian straight out of high school, depending on your grades. So you
Oh,
can go in at the age of like 19. or 18, and by the end of 5 years you can be a vet. The same way you don't actually you're not required to do any other steps, but in the US you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I then went into college, did my 3.5 years because I graduated early because I had my associates. And then I went back to Trinidad to do veterinary medicine. And in the interim, right when I was in college, I actually changed my major. I, I wanted to change my focus. Let me say my focus, not my major,
Hmm.
because I decided I didn't want to be a vet anymore.
What?
Yeah.
Why am I just hearing this?
I don't know. So
Talk to me.
I decided I didn't want to be a vet anymore because I in Trinidad had seen a lot of suffering, and
Mm,
specifically suffering from maggots, and I do not do well with those.
mm,
And I realized that a big portion of my existence as a vet would be dealing with these things because they are that's a Caribbean kind of situation. So
mm,
there's screw worms over there. um, it's common for, if the animal gets a cut or there's any sort of discharge, for
mm-hmm,
them to attract flies, and that's it. Like, you have a case. So I personally could not handle it, so I decided I was not going to be a vet, and I went to school and I did oceanography because I was going to become a marine biologist. And then 2 years in, I was like, no, I'm not going to become a marine biologist because I have to beg for grant money and I don't want to do that.
yeah. Okay.
So I switched back to just regular medicine, so that, sorry, it's just regular bio. So I graduated with um, a bio major, chemistry minor, and environmental studies minor. Um,
Wow.
yeah. And then I went back into vet school.
Okay. 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 So I want to talk a little bit about the wildlife experience, right? But what was vet school like, if you can? Like, how difficult was it? What you expected? Um, Give us a
So
little insight into that. What
sure.
can someone
So
expect? Hmm.
vet school is extremely difficult. It is very, very taxing. Doing college in the United States, I really thought that college was very easy comparatively to my high school.
Hmm.
Um, and veterinary medicine was way more grueling than I was expecting. My grades were great, I was fine, but the amount of work that I had to put into it, I was not prepared for. And in my third year of veterinary school, I actually told my mentor, if I don't pass any one of my classes, if I fail anything, I'm out. Like, I'm not
Mm.
doing this anymore.
Was that
Um,
taxing?
yeah, and he was like, he couldn't understand. He's like, you're like top of your class. Like, what is going on? Like, you're not struggling. And I was like, yeah, but it's taking a toll on me mentally that I never expected. The first time I ever had a panic attack was in vet school after so many
Wow.
years. Yeah. And I was like, this is nuts. Like, I can't do it. And what happened was I just put a lot more expectation on myself that I never had put on to myself before. Before, I was competing with myself, and now I was just trying to make sure that I was breaking generational curses for my family, you know?
Mm. Yeah.
So there was a lot of like stress, and already in a stressful situation. And I'd never failed anything before in my life either. I still didn't fail anything in
I
veterinary
knew that was
school.
coming.
But I just I wasn't equipped with that thought also of
Hmm.
not actually making it. And this was, now you've chosen your career path, right? So
Mm.
you are you have to follow through. Also, Caribbean. So your
Yeah.
parents like, you start to this, you're gonna finish it.
Essentially,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So that for me was like a big stressor. So veterinary school, for anyone who's thinking about veterinary school, not to deter you, it is extremely hard. But I coach a lot of students and I mentor with a lot of students and new vets, and I tell everybody, at the end of it, you could get 100, you could get 99, you could get 98, you could be top of the class, you could be last in the class. But if you get 50 or 60 or whatever your passing grade is, you're a vet also. You're a DVM as well.
Yeah, okay. It's giving yourself that grace a little bit, right? Okay.
Exactly, exactly.
All right. So This time working with the wildlife, was this before you came to the States to become a vet, or when was this? Give us a time frame when you were playing with jaguars.
It was after I became a
Okay.
vet, but I have always been very interested in wildlife. So I've always had some sort of strange wildlife experience. And being from the Caribbean, I've always had access to a lot of things. So I grew up with people who had snakes and people who had frogs. We were always like out in nature. Big part of my life was on the ocean. So a lot of, shark encounters. We were swimming in tiger shark territory.
Let's stop. Let's stop. I'm gonna stop you, right? Because the way you're saying it is so comfortable, right? I just want to make sure I heard you. Yeah, it was very natural for us to swim with sharks.
Yes, they're
Okay.
part of the ocean. You're in their home. No, so
Okay.
I've not so that's what you're talking about is very funny because that's it literally my personality even when I'm in as a doctor like in veterinary medicine when I'm in my rooms. I'm not afraid of very many things. So I'm kind of just like, okay, let's go. And so a lot of times that trait has helped me in my veterinary career, just being able to look at animals and kind of understand like where they are at and then meet them where they're at so that it's a safer environment for everybody. The more unpredictable something is, the more you want to try and read it as fast as possible so that you can get ahead of the
Mm.
situation or the potential outcome, right? And so, I've only been bitten by like three dogs in my whole life.
Can you
And
hear yourself? Like,
yeah,
like I've only been bitten by. Good lord, man.
but one of them was when I was very young. Like it was before I was probably like 3 or 2, and I got bitten in the face by two dogs that were fighting, and they weren't trying to eat me. They were just trying to, get at each other. And I, as a young kid, still understood like they weren't trying to harm me. So it didn't leave that traumatic effect for me. Like I was never afraid. Um, but I love wildlife and I've always been around it and I've always loved nature and I love the fact that animals, I think they've been put on this earth for so much more than we give them credit for. And we as people just we don't kind of like appreciate. I think that's the perfect word. We don't appreciate what we have, and I think that that's another reason that I was pushed into like the veterinary field,
Mm.
because as much as the environment is changing and there are these crazy like now these storms and like there's so much happening with the environment that we're just like, oh my goodness, we kind of have to also advocate for the animals that we do have. And I would love to be a wildlife vet, but it doesn't pay that well.
Okay, okay. That's the first thing you said that makes sense to us. You know what I mean? You still gotta get paid. So, what's the people can see you. What's the craziest animal you've worked with that no one would ever have expected just by looking at you?
I've definitely worked with jaguars, zebra, giraffes, anacondas, uh,
Anacondas.
yes,
Okay.
red-tailed boas. So I've done a lot of wild caimans. So I've trapped a lot of animals and rehabbed them, and then relocated them to other
That's awesome.
non-urban places. Yeah.
How did you decide to go into that?
I had a couple friends that were in the rescue and rehab field in Trinidad, and I decided, hey, I really love, just participating in certain things, and I don't necessarily want to just be in clinics. So this is a great way for me to like kind of give back, and then I was able to kind of donate my time and my expertise so that if they had any animal that was hurt, like I would actually help them rehab them and release them.
So this is dope. I want to ask you this question because it just dawned on me. Because obviously, just based on what you shared with us, you've always personally pushed yourself and wanted to be just naturally good at whatever you did, right? Um, Now I know you went to school in Trinidad and Tobago, so this question is not relevant for there. But when you
Okay.
came to the States, did you often see yourself as one of the few people of color in your class, one of the few Caribbean people in your class, one of the few Trinidadians in your environment, or Tobagonians, however you want to say it?
Tobagonians.
Tobagonians. Yes.
Or Trinbagonians. So when I came to the States, yes and no. I went to St. John's and they were very multicultural, and there were actually a lot of Trinidadians who were in St. John's. And in my science courses, the same. So a lot of
Wow.
people of color in my science courses also. So no, I've never really felt like this is like a strange thing. And also where I'm from, um,
Mm-hmm.
everyone is everyone who it's very status driven. So everyone in the area that I live, you want to be able to best opportunity or lifestyle, and so you're able to kind of push yourself. We've had female presidents as long as I could remember. I've gone to female doctors in my field, in my country, sorry, and I've seen a lot of female veterinarians and people of color in my schools. So it never occurred to me that I would be a trailblazer, but I am a trailblazer in my even in my own school and in my own class, because I was the first one to branch out of Trinidad and move to the States, and I did it within a very short period of time. So I
Mm-hmm.
figured out real fast like what I needed to do to become accredited over here, and then I just did it in like a year, which is like unheard of. Like people are just like, how did you do that? Because it was like 4 exams, like I pretty much did it back to back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know,
And
when you swim with sharks and tigers and what's a test, right?
right, right. Also the exams were pretty tough to become accredited. The last exam was actually the NAVLE, which is what everyone in North America does to become like boarded in the States. That test was so hard. It was 7 hours long. It was 7 hours long. It was, I think, 300 or 400 and something questions. You were only able to take like an hour break all at once, or like break up your breaks into like
Mm-hmm.
15-minute sections. And as a person who has ADHD, like that was insanely difficult for me to concentrate on for so long. Um, and the purpose of the exam, it isn't just an exam like, what it's not just testing like regular like test
Mm-hmm.
questions.
It's not
They're also
straightforward.
it's
It's
like
like,
your mental fortitude. They're,
mm,
they're testing how well you do under pressure. There are questions in there that throwaway questions, or there are questions in there that are meant to just trip you up, and they're looking to see how you deal with that scenario.
hmm
And that's a part of your air quotes online test, which was insane.
wow, wow.
Yeah.
So now you've found your way to the States.
Yeah.
You found your zone. You had some internal questions whether I'm going to continue this or not. You decided to stick forward with it, and and one of the reasons why, before I go to this next reason, and I stated it earlier, is I don't know any black vets, right? Just my community. I don't know any vets, right? I know judges, lawyers, police officers, captains, but I realize you're my only vet friend. Um, so you've done all this, and now you're transitioning to a practice. What's it like now, being the leader of your own hospital? And it took me a while when you kept on saying hospital. It took me a while to realize, wait a minute, you own a hospital for
Yeah.
pets. So
Yeah.
talk us through that.
Sure. So I never really wanted to own a hospital, so that's the
hmm
first thing I will say. So when I say I was thrown into this, I was thrown into it like mentally. I was like not even. I said okay, because I'm a
hmm
yes. I'm a yes person. I'm a very forward thinking, go getter kind of personality.
hmm
So the opportunity came, and I said, sure, let's figure it out. It'll be fine. Everything's gonna be great. And was not prepared. but I am very good at learning on the fly. Um, again, did not really see the ramifications of being a role model or having being a leader. Actually, like, I'd led before but not in the capacity that I'm leading right now. And so it was a very steep learning curve, with some really large mistakes that I'm still working through, but with things that I would not have changed for anything. Like,
Hmm.
at the end of it, like, I can decide the type of leader that I want to be. I know that I want to lead well, and I want to have like a specific style that I go with different, that I used to lead different personalities, but you have
Hmm.
to be kind of like fluid and pivot. And I did not get the tools that I needed in veterinary school. So I'm an amazing vet, but I did not get any sort of financial or
Mm.
business background before I decided to own a business. I just used some of what I had innately, and then I was gracious enough to be accepted into 10 KSB. So that
Yeah.
helped. That helped a lot, in terms of really solidifying kind of what it meant to be a leader. Um, how that the fact that I'm one of very few that
Hmm.
are out there, and it really puts some things into perspective for me in terms of, I can actually do this and learn on the fly and be some sort of model for other people to kind of, follow. And I love 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 talking to people about it, and just really helping people through the whole process so that they don't make the same necessarily the same mistakes I made. um
Hmm.
so to answer your question, it's kind of crazy, but it's been a real stepwise approach to learning how to
Hmm.
be an effective leader, and how to own a business, and also how to be a great vet, and also now how to lead teams and coordinate meetings with brokers and lawyers and
Yeah. Yeah.
everything else.
Listen. Listen, one of the things that fascinated me, right? Because I had the privilege of visiting Heal. For our listeners, I don't know if I ever stated it on the name of your practice. Help every animal with love.
Helping.
Helping. Okay, you could have
Yeah.
corrected me after the show, but that's fine. I kid.
Sorry.
Um, but when I walked through, um, and I was like, wait a minute, you have a surgery room back here. You can do dentistry. You have your own. Was it a centrifuge machine, drug blowing? Like, help people understand maybe any misconceptions they have about a veterinary hospital compared to a regular traditional human hospital.
So a veterinary hospital, when you hear hospital is in the name, it is true to form. Exactly what you have in the human world, which is your giant hospitals with all of the
Hmm.
different parameters, that's in my smaller hospital. So I have an x-ray room, I have ultrasound, I have a surgery suite, dentistry suite, I have in-house lab machines, I have a pharmacy. So everything that is in a human hospital is in my hospital, and we use the exact same machinery, except we don't get any subsidizing. So we buy everything out of pocket, and we basically
Wow.
put it into these smaller hospitals. And then, as a veterinarian, you need to know not just multi-species, multi-species. You need to also have a great understanding of every single aspect of the body that you can see, touch, smell, feel, or not.
When you
So
say the body, you talking about the human body, or you talking about specific to
your body is the same body that an animal has, because technically we are also classified as animals. So you
you just blew my
are.
mind with that one.
Yeah. So everything that is in you is
Uh huh.
something that you can find, generally speaking, in an animal. And so we are dermatologists, oncologists,
What?
hematologists, phlebotomists, we're
Wait a minute. Stop.
radiologists,
Stop. 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 Dermatologist.
ultrasonographers. Yes, sir. We are literally surgeons. Like we do everything
So let me
for our
stop
pets.
you. Let me stop you because in the human world, a dermatologist can't be my surgeon,
Exactly.
right? So, but you're saying a veterinarian has to be disciplined in addition to understanding
Different
multiple
species.
species.
Yes. That's
Wow.
exactly what I'm telling you. So
Yeah.
I'm a surgeon. I'm also an internal medicine, not necessarily a specialist, because you can also specialize in different areas. But as a baseline, we are supposed to know all these multifactorial systems and then how to treat also. So cardio, we have some idea of cardio, and then when you extrapolate that out, there aren't enough vets for how many pets they have, especially in the United States of America, but this is a worldwide situation. And so when you're in a rural area, I have access to maybe a specialist 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops. In a
Hmm.
rural area, there are no specialists sometimes for
I didn't
30,
even think
40,
about that.
60
Yeah.
miles. So your vet actually is there are no referrals or very few times that they can refer, so they become very good at figuring out what to do and how far they can get away with doing stuff. But they're extremely knowledgeable in certain aspects because they have to be, because there's no one else. You're looking at the definition literally of holding something's life in your hands. So it's a matter of, if I don't do this, it's not going to make it. So I'm going to do what I have to do to make sure it survives, even though
Mm.
I'm not necessarily a specialist in it. Um, Fortunately for us, we do have specialists in the area. So if I don't know something, I can just refer it to someone. There are ophthalmologists right now. There
You
are
said, wait, just
rehab
stop. So you said a
specialists,
thermologist?
ophthalmologists. Yeah.
Oh, this is a thumb. I was like, no, nah, it's too far. You're going too far with this. So now I can understand why there has to be a passion for um animals, even though we're classified as animals, because what it takes to get to a point where you can help them, you can only do this if you are committed. And we've talked about, and maybe another show we'll talk about what the toll it actually takes on vets, mentally, the burnout, the suicide rate. So it's definitely a field that if you choose it, it has to be a deep burning desire and a commitment to knowing that this is what you want to do. So in the time we had left, the first question would be, if someone was deciding to become a vet, what are three pieces of advice? Not own a practice, but just become a vet. If I have a 13-year-old kid, what would you tell them in terms of study, attitude, whatever it is?
So I would start by saying that it's very important for you to understand, and I would talk to a kid this way also. It's very important for you to understand that being a vet does not mean that you get to play with puppies and kittens all the time. So a lot of misconceptions that a lot of people have is that it's a happy field because we're dealing with animals and we're all cherry eyed. You're dealing with the negative and the positive at the same time, and it is weighty. So if you don't think that you are able to handle the bad side of veterinary medicine, it's not a field for you, because we're doctors, we see the worst of the worst. That's what they're coming to us for in majority of the time.
Mhm.
And so I would start by telling a young person, like, okay, I totally hear you, but do understand that you'll see a lot of sick animals. How do you feel about that? That's my first question. How do you feel when
Mm,
you see a sick animal, and why is it that you feel that you want to become a vet? Is it that you want to help, or is it that you want to play with puppies and kittens?
that's a
um,
good point.
and depending on what the answer is, there are a lot of other fields, animal related fields, that are not veterinary medicine, that are equally as helpful for people to go into, that may be more fulfilling and won't inevitably lead to burnout. So that's the first thing the first question or statement that I would make. The second is, you have to be prepared for a lot of school. If you do not like to study, you do not want to be in school for a long period of time, you are not trying to spend tons of money in school, not the field for you. It
Mm,
is a
fair.
lot of schooling. It is a lot of schooling. It really is an expensive field to go into, especially if you're coming from the United States, because you are gonna put yourself in some debt to become a vet, and the pay in relation to how much you're spending doesn't always add up, or usually doesn't add up. So you are doing this more likely for the love of the animal than you are to get
Mm,
rich, which would be my third and final question. Do you want to be rich? Do you want to make a lot of money? Not feel for that.
fair enough. Fair enough. We're up against the time, so my question out to you as the person that owns a veterinary hospital, if you can go back to college, what would you tell yourself, knowing that you're about to do this, that you should add to your repertoire, your skill set, or your knowledge base?
Definitely how to read financial statements and to take a couple business courses, just baseline. Doesn't have to be anything too crazy. But it helps prepare your mental for the additions of what you're going to have to do to own a hospital that you are going to not necessarily get in veterinary school. So it's good to have that kind of baseline for when you're in college, and you can kind of pick and choose different classes, and they're kind of just like giving you some informational stuff. I would definitely say that, or that you multiply do an MBA if you can.
Hmm. Yeah.
That is probably Those will probably be the two most solid pieces of advice if you know that you want to own. Um, and if you do want to own and it isn't something that you've done, it's never too late to actually go back and kind of do courses, get certifications, and learn otherwise what you need to effectively own a business. You don't want to make really expensive mistakes, because it is already a tough field, and added to that, the pressure of owning a business and then it failing because you're not necessarily sure what you're doing. It's a little rough.
All right. Dr. Dumas, thank you. If people listen to the episode wanted to follow you, reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
The best way to do that would be to go on our Instagram. It's at H.E.A.L, H.E.A.L. And that's our Instagram, and or to email the practice at info@healdumbo.vet. That is the best way for you to get like information from us if you needed it, or you wanted to have access, or you have more questions.
Oh man, Nicole, my friend, thank you so much. You know what? I think now if someone comes to me, I say, "Well, do you just want to play with animals? And how do
Yes.
you feel about the negative side?" Right? I'm learning. I'm learning. I'm learning. So thank you so much. I appreciate you being on our show, talking with us, giving us tremendous insight into your journey from Trinidad and Tobago to Brooklyn and to own a hospital. Folks, I'm Coach Rod, and this was the Playbook, where real stories meet real strategy. If this episode gave you insight or fuel, hit that follow button or drop a comment, share it, follow us, and help build the next generation of leaders. Look out
Oh
for new
yeah.
episodes, right? On Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, because every dream needs a game plan. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
I'm Coach Rod. Thanks for tuning in to the Playbook. If you got value from this episode, like, comment, and subscribe. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. Catch you next time.